Do you think this is going to be part of the issue, that actually the EU are going to have to sort of basically come on side with what Britain is doing when it comes to Rwanda? Or do you think a new Labour government, if Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister, would very much push against that? He says we would abandon the Rwanda policy, even if it, in the unlikely event, was up and running and was working. What do you make of it all?
So I think that most people would say that the Rwanda policy, as it currently is it's a gimmick, right? It's about giving the government political cover whilst it tries to come up with a more long-term solution. I'll try to be generous to them and suggest that they do actually want to do that. And what you're seeing with Rishi Sunak's visit in Austria this morning was, on the one hand, wanting to promote that gimmick of the Rwanda plan, and on the other hand, actually trying to build those relationships with European partners in order to come up with that long-term solution, which the long-term solution is cooperating with other countries, because we don't have the power to simply say we're not going to allow small boats to come here. We can't totally stop it. But what we can do is say we will take our fair share of asylum applications if you, France, you, Austria, you, other European countries take your fair share.
But hold on a minute. Look, it's harder for people to get to the UK than it is to just cross into mainland Europe and move through easily through the open borders of the Schengen system. This notion of fair share I find fascinating, because I tell you who don't take their fair share. The sort of rich neighbourhoods where the politicians and the civil servants who make these decisions and the human rights lawyers live, they don't take their fair share. These people are dumped in other parts of the country, other neighbourhoods, where people say, I think we've got more than our fair share, frankly. What is our fair share? Why do we have any duty to take any of these people?
I thought you were always saying how it was the problem of left-wing lawyers in Islington who were the people doing this, Julia. But I think you'll find that Islington's got a huge number of...
Not in the streets where the lefty lawyers live.
If you've been to Islington, you'll know, Julia, that the impoverished streets and the wealthy streets are right next to each other. That's how lots of different parts of this country work. But I think you are highlighting an important point, which is that if you're not going to, for instance, give asylum applicants the right to work in this country, then you're going to end up with a lot of resentment. I mean, particularly in somewhere like Kent, where you've got loads of asylum applicants trapped in B&Bs, it's understandable that people feel relatively uncomfortable with that. But that means we need to give asylum applicants the right to work.
I love that. That's not the solution. That's not the solution. If you give them the right to work, we may as well just say, like, literally just open our borders and just provide free flights from everywhere, around every basket case country from around the world. It's literally the opposite of a solution.
Come on, this is silly. It's ahistorical nonsense, Julia. Asylum applicants used to have the right to work in this country.
No, but they weren't coming on this scale.
We've got loads of countries around the world where people are allowed to work while they're...
How's that working out for them? But they probably don't sit there for 3 years. Look, I mean, there are a million things we need to sort out in the home. Well, no, it's a problem with the Home Office. I hate to tell you that when Labour get in, as it's very likely will at the end of this year, they're going to be dealing with exactly the same civil servants as the Home Office, but they've obviously under this illusion, and the same leaders in Europe, including the same French president. They're going to find that actually they're just as unhelpful to a Labour government as they are to a Tory government.
Well, there's two different things you talked about there. Firstly, the Home Office officials. I think you're quite right to say that Labour's going to have to change its approach to that, and that's exactly what they're saying they'll do. They will hire a large number, quite an expensive amount, of new border officials so we can start processing those asylum applications, because unfortunately the Conservative government has defunded our borders. That means that we simply haven't had the staff to go through the asylum applications. You need people to be there doing that, quite frankly, emotionally exhausting work of interviewing people who are talking. If somebody says that they've been raped, if they say that...
Yeah, that's their job. I mean, yeah, they've not been raped themselves, the people hearing about it. It's like me saying, when I'm interviewing somebody who's gone through a horrific experience, it's emotionally exhausting for me. This is it's like constantly worrying about the the police because they have to go and deal with crime. I mean, for goodness sake, it's absurd. Look, the key thing here is we're going to be in a situation where the Labour government are going to have to deal with exactly the same issues that Tories have got. We're looking at more than 10,000 probably migrants having come to this country by the end of this week, already this year. This problem ain't going away in Europe, ain't going away here, and no one seems to have a solution.
So I would agree with you that there isn't a short-term solution, and the political gimmicks that we've had from the Conservative Party are in a way a reflection of that, right? When you don't have a short-term solution, you come up with a gimmick. The reason that there are a lot of people around the world who are desperate to leave the places they're in and go somewhere else are manifold, but the big ones are bad harvests because of extreme weather, and that's caused a lot of the time by human-made climate change.
Oh,
and then another,
not.
of course,
I knew.
war.
Do you know what? In my head, I thought he's going to say climate change. It's not. It's because of basket case countries, corrupt authoritarian countries, and inadequate governance. It's got bugger all to do with climate change. This is such a big lie. This is just this big white European guilt nonsense.
You clearly haven't been reading your history books, Julia, because it's absolutely about a combination of those things. Let's have a look at Syria. Yeah, let's talk about Syria.
Yeah,
Syria
it's the problem
exactly
with the harvest. That's the problem in Syria. It's the climate change. It's been too hot.
Oh my God, Julia, if you honestly don't know the reason that the Syrian civil war began was because of A, authoritarianism, and B, bad harvests, then it's fine to be ignorant about what you're talking about.
Democratic governments with good governance can cope with bad harvests.
I've actually spent a lot of time in Syria, and I can tell you it was about a combination of, exactly as you say, authoritarianism.
Authoritarian governments can't cope with bad harvest because of the corruption and bad governance.
There had been decades of authoritarianism, but the civil war, which caused mass asylum applications, was after bad harvests caused by climate change.
And as part of
that, that's fine, but maybe don't challenge on something you're ignorant about.
No, but you're saying it's because of climate change, and bad harvests don't happen because of climate. It's a load of absolute tosh, and it's just a complete Labour tosh. No, I want to ask you about one of the things.
Because I've got facts, and you've got
no, you haven't, because you haven't, because harvests. I hate to tell you, harvests have been failing and will fail forever at different times. Anyway, I want to ask you about something else, Richard, really, really briefly, but it has to be very brief. I want to ask you about this skills boot camp idea for young jobless people. Not in work. There's something suggested by the Work and Pensions Secretary, Mel Stride. Is that the answer? Would Labour support that, do you think?
I think the thing is that it's a tiny little bit of the answer. If you think about who's unemployed, okay, most people who are unemployed are short-term unemployed people. They go from one job to another with a little bit of benefits in between. There's this small proportion who are long-term unemployed. And the thing is that whilst a skills bootcamp might be part of the answer, the main thing is okay, these people have chaotic family lives. They might be dependent on alcohol. They may have mental health problems that they're not getting support with. Unless you deal with those issues, a skills bootcamp isn't going to do anything.
Okay, thank you for that. Really appreciate you joining us. But I'm sure if there wasn't climate change, there wouldn't be any problem for any unskilled workers either. Richard Power-Sayeed, thank you for joining us. Always good to talk to you. Quick